Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Experts. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, we're going to discuss the myth of work-life balance. We're going to listen to our experts for about half the session, and then the second half of today's workshop, the experts will field questions from you. So be thinking of some good ones during the presentation, okay? Those of you that are here in person can just raise your hand when the time comes, or to people on Zoom, please just type it in the chat. I will read your question for you when it's time for questions. Today's session wouldn't be possible without the support of STCU. And here from STCU to say a few words is Bill Walther. So help me give Bill a little round of applause. You guys don't have applause. This is fantastic. All right, so yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. STC really appreciates being given the opportunity to host these Ask the Experts stuff. So for tonight, to choose Brent and Gina. I was gonna take a stab at her last names, but we're gonna skip that one for you guys. STC, we do a lot of business stuff. So I'm a business banker over there. So small commercial real estate stuff, business vehicles, and so that kind of stuff. That's my expertise. But in September, you may have noticed that we opened up our 50th branch location just down the street. So STC now has over 1,000 employees. And so we talk about like work-life balance. What does that mean? We have 11 paid holidays that we do. And then we encourage our employees to volunteer. So with that, they actually pay 8 hours to go and volunteer. So if they volunteer at a certain location, at least 20 hours, we'll have a grant. So that's your child's school. So yeah, so STCU is happy to be here and to introduce these two folks. So we look forward to a great topic today. Thank you, Bill. STCU, time for different work. Before we introduce our speakers, let me go around the room, introduce ourselves, say your name and where you're coming from.
Sure. I am Claudia Brown. I am the practice liaison for Ben Franklin for Association or Associate. Sorry.
I'm Eric Mendoza. I'm a realtor here with Real Broken here in Kansas City. All right, let's do it, everybody. My name is Adam. I'm used with Made in America Cleaning Service Company.
Kristen's good at the original marketing with Hayden.
Hopefully you guys remember me.
Natalie Garland, Area Sales Executive with Title I Title Escrow.
I'm Claire Barker with Title I Area Sales Executive. Mitzi Rodriguez, I'm with TC Futures. Jose Marquez, also with Futures. I am Lisa Lundy with Apple Business.
Jose Sandoval, what first one?
Julie Uli, Association.
Sarah with Circuit Columbia.
I'm Larry Knopf. I'm with the Fire.
Thank you so much. Ready? Here's our expert. Gina Donangelo Barnecut is a seasoned marketing leader, currently serving as regional marketing director at Hayden Homes. She leverages nearly 20 years of experience across hospitality, sales management, public relations, and home builder marketing. With a background that includes roles in travel and tourism, she brings a unique blend of experience focused and strategic brand building to the residential construction industry. She earned her MBA, which provided her with a strong foundation in business leadership and communication. Known for her community-driven mindset, Gina has helped launch multiple new home communities and fostered partnerships with local leaders, businesses, and organizations throughout the Tri-Cities region and beyond. Her strengths include translating market insights into action, building meaningful relationships, leading her team across 4 states, and shaping brand narratives that resonate. This is Gina. Let's give her a round of applause. And this is Brent Spooner. He's the founder and CEO of Gravis Law, a national law firm based in Richmond. With a background in law, business, and technology, he is dedicated to supporting small businesses, innovation, and rural economic growth. Brett also founded Clevercase, a legal software company, and chairs Fuse SPC, a business accelerator and co-working space. If you guys haven't seen Fuse in Richland, you really should go check it out. It is so cool. He serves on multiple community and educational boards and teaches at Launch University, STCUs and Washington State University Tri-City. Passionate about entrepreneurship and social impact, Brett has led legal industry disruption through Gravis Law and promotes economic development through community programs. Outside work, he enjoys spending time with family, gardening, hunting, and outdoor activities. I saw you're also a gamer, which I am as well, so that got me excited. This is Brett. Yeah. Right.
Awesome. So Gravis Law is a national practice. We have about 20 locations, about 180 employees. And I will tell you right now, I'm an avid believer that work-life balance doesn't exist. And so we're going to start there. And we're going to have a discussion today, why I feel that way. One of the challenges in the legal industry, though, is how miserable attorneys are. There are a lot of jokes out there. There's this concept of the hamster wheel of death, massive billable hours. And so when we founded Gravis, one of our objectives was to figure out how to tackle that piece of the problem. So I'm not going to rush to the punchline of this, but really it's about the whole picture. And we're going to talk about that today.
Obviously, I'm the one with your last name. But I'm Rethinking homes, and we've been a home builder for over 35 years. We serve 4 different states and have helped 28,000 families find the dream of home ownership. With that, the work-life balance, I am with Brett that it is a challenge, and being intentional is a big thing. And so one of the great things working with Hayden Homes is we've won Best Places to Work for a number of years, and excited to share that we've also won Best Places to Work for Parent Forty magazine, which was announced today. So really and volunteering, and so it's an exciting topic.
So we wanted to introduce our teams besides our work teams. I am a proud father. I have 2 daughters, 9 and 11. And my wife works full time out at the National Lab. She runs campus facilities out there. And a real big piece of when we talk about this work-life balance, and this is where I think a lot of people have sort of this concept that they have their personal life and their family life, and they have their work life. And part of the discussions today is really going to be how we constructively bring those together. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we dive in, I think it's really important to go through a quick exercise. And I think it's really important we do content like this, that we leave you all with something tangible to take home. And that's one of those out there. So we're going to value first. So this is an exercise I take my teams through. We're going to make it quick. We're going to accelerate it today. For those of you who are online, Austin's going to dump it into the chat, so you'll have a copy of it. And for those of you who want it later, you're doing both. You got this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so take a second and run through the front of the sheet, but this is a quick, efficient exercise to dial down your core personal values. I think this is an important piece of the puzzle when we're talking about work-life balance. So you go through, run down the sheet, and you're basically going to determine if it's not important, important, or very important. So run down that. We'll give you a couple minutes really quickly just to go down that. Don't overthink these. It should be what your gut response is to the word that you see. And at the end, you can add ones that might be missing. There's certainly going to be values in all of your in all of your lives that might not be on the sheet, but we're going to run through it that way. For those who like to skip ahead, we're going to try to get down to your top 6.
But now back here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you've gone through, once you've gotten through and you've done not important, important, or very important, now you narrow it down to 10. Hopefully those are ones, the 10 that you pick come out of your report, very important. If you can get right to those top 6, great. This is sometimes the hardest part, going from 10 to 6. Now, I know we're gonna feel a little rushed today on this. Austin has shared this in the chat, and he can email this form out to everybody later. You can take your pace through it. I've taken my family and my kids through this. I think it's so we have family core values at home, and we workshop them and we talk about them when we're thinking about how we want to prioritize our year. So I think this is a really quick way to navigate that piece of the process. So who's got their 6? All right, want to share them?
Sure. I've got adventure, curiosity, growth, creativity, connection, and authenticity.
Excellent. Okay, and then the last piece is what's your number one most important?
For one most.
Yeah, that's a tough one out of that.
I think probably growth.
Okay,
All things come from growth.
what about you?
I have creativity, community, integrity, connection, authenticity, and people. And go with, sorry.
Now flip it over. Write your 6. Top one being the top one. Remember, number one. We're gonna save the final exercise just for the sake of time. If we have more time, we'll get back to it. But now you've got your 6 core values, and the last exercise would be to take those and turn them into some sort of personal mission state, integrating all of those words. How many of you have thought about your personal core values separate from maybe like company core values? Show of hands. Yeah, awesome. Why does this matter to work-life balance? Some thoughts.
That it's not in line with that at all.
Sometimes, yeah.
It integrates. Perfect. Yeah. In your value. Awesome.
So that's what we're really going to be talking about here today. We say work-life balance is a myth because that implies that work is absent of life and life doesn't require work. It's bullshit. Yeah, it's about integrating the whole and all of those parts. And there's a lot of literature out there about the amount of time it takes to be an expert in something, about how you identify and identify the things you want to focus those 10 years on, really become an expert in a field, in an art, in an area of interest, and what drives you to those things, and part of your core values. And so really understanding where your foundation is helps you start on the integration path.
It doesn't exist. It's really difficult. There's no 50-50 split. Like as a mom, like personally, and as like a woman and a full-time like leader, it is really difficult. You're thinking long term. Am I gonna pick my kids up? Have I done the dishes? When am I doing his laundry? Oh wait, David doesn't equipment. Oh wait, I have this stuff due at work. Yeah, it's a challenge. And so I think today it's one of those days where we're really gonna hone in on that intent. Like how intentional are we being with our habits and that time personally.
We're at a point in time more than ever where the workplace and the disruption through AI, hybrid work and remote work has really challenged us to think about work-life balance, work-life integration. And in many ways, it's at the heart of a lot of the tough conversations that leaders and managers are having in the workforce. Why do we have a 40-hour work? Does anybody know the origin story of this? This goes all the way back to Henry Ford in the automotive era. And we're in factories and labor unions come to be. And this idea of an 8-hour workday comes from this concept of 8 hours at work, 8 hours at home, 8 hours for whatever. Like they broke the day up into thirds and just said, well, 8 of those, 1/3 of the day is going to go to the work. And then you can figure out what, your family and personal life will be 8, and then 8 will be however you want to spend your time. And they just kind of, that extra 8 was just a graphic, by the way. And at that point in time, if we look at where we were at and sort of the workforce, that was very much a time where you showed up, punched the clock, you did your 8 hours, and then you left. And you went home. You couldn't build cars or work in a factory. You were at home and you were disconnected from work. Nowadays, and we'll talk about this, the work environment has changed so much that it's nearly impossible to leave work in the office. We're just so digitally connected. And there's mechanisms for shutting email down. There's mechanisms for disconnecting to some extent. But the reality is, if we don't build healthy boundaries and mechanisms for that, we'll really challenge ourselves.
No, I mean, I think it's crazy to think that was the norm, what our norm is now. Okay, that's unbelievable. I mean, you're leading right into the next topic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if we look at the industrial area, you do a side-by-side comparison. It was a really predictable process. Output was generally just maybe time at factory and facility. Work stopped when you left, like I said. And really, success was just being consistent, showing up. Nowadays, we have constant change in digital flow. Email communications on our phones. Our chat channels are going on our phones. There are automations happening 24/7. It used to be enough that if somebody called into an office and they'd expect to talk to somebody during the work hours, it wasn't that we expected a 24-hour phone service. And most organizations have had to figure out how to just staff phones 24/7. AI is making that an agentic solution, by the way. So that's a whole nother discussion on how we look at AI. But the bottom line here is it follows you wherever you go.
No, I think it's so interesting how AI and technology is taking over our entire lives. Like, it's so great for efficiencies, but then it's also removing all the human interaction. So finding that balance of the interaction and including those moments and not missing them because you're stuck on your phone and using all these buttons, right? But how do we use those buttons to make our life more efficient? That balance.
Yeah, I think that's some boundaries.
Yeah. So boundaries are not barriers. I think that is such a misconception that we have these days because we've all heard it. We cannot do it all, but we're forced to, and that's what's leading to burnout, personally and professionally. And I think the real success is doing everything, and it's about being intentional and setting those boundaries. And so, what is the purpose of boundaries? It's not selfish. That's essential. Does anyone feel comfortable setting their own boundaries? Yeah, that's good. That makes it easier, right? Without boundaries, I think we're saying yes to things where, right? Sometimes we're saying yes to things where we wish we would have said no, right? And now you have this whole feeling that you have to get it done. You're overextended. And then sometimes we pretend that we can handle it even though we know that we can't. So being intentional and with those boundaries, what does that look like? It's saying no to checking your email at 10 p.m. It's having and identifying what non-negotiables are they. Your child, your family time, is it your rest time? My kids call them brain breaks. Like, are you really setting those boundaries? Are you setting up your calendar for success? Like I know in my personal life, like I set Gina time. I have nothing going on, but I know if I don't do that, then someone else is going to book it for me, and now I have something going on, and I can't control that, so it drives me nuts. Practicing saying no, or even better, not right now. I know I could do better about that because as leaders and as people in the workforce, like if you want to be able to be included and do these things, which also brings me to your next point. Why are we being part of meetings that you don't have to be part of, right? To fill in the know. So setting those boundaries, and they matter because it's how you protect your emotional bandwidth, you're preventing resentment and experiencing real connections. It's about being intentional with setting those boundaries and being present. We're also redefining it in a way that sometimes needs work, more from us, and sometimes your family or personal life needs more of you. So it's a catch-22. 80% of your time sometimes is spent more at work, where you're putting your family time aside, and then the other days that. And I think a lot of it goes back to, if anyone's ever read Lean In, it's, have you, no, that's a really good book, but part of that is sometimes it's give and take. You have that spouse at home, sometimes your spouse is taking over more things. That means that, I can't speak today, means more at that time where you can spend it somewhere else, and other days it's vice versa. So you're really sharing that responsibility.
That's it, you know.
Like either anxious.
Like roll out of bed, ready to get email, yeah. Do some editing in the morning or read a book. I'm just here to tell you what not to do. You know, boundaries aren't just for things like in the workplace. One of the things that we have had to talk a lot about at home, both of us work a lot, and we love what we do. So, you know, we're managing that expectation with the kids. And one of the boundaries is not going to be every practice or in every game. Boundaries go both ways, because we care a lot about the people that we're helping at work and the mission that we have, and setting those expectations and boundaries at home matters too. And that goes both within your relationship with your spouse, but also with your kids, your partner, making sure that you're being clear and planning that out as a huge piece of the puzzle for getting integration right. So, why does this matter for the workspace right now? I think we hit on some of those buttons, but things are changing. I mean, we're at a point now where the AI, fourth industrial revolution, is a thing. Who believes it's a thing? Who thinks it's a bunch of, you know, tech mumbo jumbo and it's not real? It's real. Agentic AI, I mean, most of the major organizations, Amex and so forth, are running their entire call centers on agentic AI at this point. These are AI interfacing with humans. The workforce is going to change very dramatically. And the things that we used to do from the day-to-day in the workplace, maybe they were billable hours, maybe they were administrative or support functions. A lot of that is going to shift. And we're going to have to figure out how our time is spent and how we capture that value. The concern, of course, is that robots are going to replace humans. And that's just not accurate. But I think humans are going to have to adapt to leverage the strengths that they have, their human interaction component, the empathy piece, the engagement piece. And that requires us to be engaged with technology more often and manage more workflows. It's easy to see how with AI within our grasp, we could be working 24/7, just keeping all of the bots going. And so there's going to be a lot of automated tasks that are going to require humans to have touch points. And that's going to even more disrupt the ability to have work-life balance. To really get that integration piece right, we're going to have to set meaningful boundaries and make sure that as we think about hybrid work and AI interfaces, we have to be more intentional than ever. So how have you all managed this? Does anybody, what is your solution for work-life integration within the room?
I utilize it as a tool so that I can be more efficient when I'm allowed. It allows me to have more connection. So bring me up to other feedback.
Anybody else? What's your secret weapon?
I try to set up my day at the touch points that I know cause me the most anxiety. So we're just kind of joking that like our outlook on outlook is different. For me, knowing like what my day looks like is an anxiety reducer. So if I get up and I check that email, it's like, okay, now I know what's coming. It lowers my anxiety about the day. And contrary in the evening, I need to focus. So it is tech down there on the table. It's healthy conversation and discourse. Because without that, our relationships aren't really big. So I find those like target times
There's peaks and valleys just in a day, right? But what about across a month or a year? How many of you have kids? Like, is there like heavy sports seasons that are just completely different than other parts of the year? Or what about seasonal work? Who's in the seasonal work role? There's maybe taxes are due 2 or 3 times a year. It's like the taxes are always due. Yeah, it's really about looking at the whole year and maybe even years, because with kids, with ages and stages, with where you're at in your professional career, it's not simple enough to be a hostage to the day or the workflow. Trying to find that balance within in a given moment is really hard. You really got to think about how to keep yourself energized and focused across time. And that really going back to this core values exercise and what we'll touch into a little bit. At the end, we'll put a vision traction organizer who's familiar with EOS. Anybody done EOS? This is, and I'm not sanctioned to sell EOS because they have a lot of things trademarked. But the thing that I have taken into my personal life out of EOS is this one pager that lets you set a 10-year, 3-year, and 1-year picture. And so as we think about how we plan work-life balance, which doesn't exist, work-life integration, it's really about planning over time and really focusing our energy and figuring out how to find true harmony and the things that we're passionate about in our personal life and the things that we're passionate about in our existence within our work life. We spend a significant amount of time wherever you're at working with your coworkers, and that to say that can't transcend into your personal life, come home with you, it always does. But it's how you manage that piece of it.
I will add to, I love what you said, the no tech time, that's really big. I know Kristen works with me, she totally knows that the work-life balance is a challenge in general for myself. But it is a thing, I think coming home and like hours, like sometimes you have to shift your hours in order to make it work, like taking kids to school, seasonality, right? Getting in at 8:30 as opposed to the 7:30 that we're typically. And then right now, I don't know if you saw it, the crazy 2-year-old on top of the 10 and 8-year-old. And so daycare ends at 4. So it's like you're coming to pick them up before 4 and then getting home and then still working, but shutting it down while they're awake and then bringing it back out. Like it's not an everyday thing. It's not sustainable, but it does happen. And you have to shift a little bit of what you need to do to be fully focused in the moment of your kids. And then one thing I want to add to that is our go-to is family dinners, like sitting together and like that's our connection time, no technology or anything like that.
So there's this concept of the 60-hour sweep. Like I said, I do not want to work 60 hours a week. And I don't blame you, no one should work 60 hours a week. But to be great at something and to leverage our curiosity, we're not bound within a 40-hour work week. I think where a lot of angst and work-life balance comes to play, I get it a lot, like, well, why don't we just do it every Friday? Let's do 4 8s. That'd be really nice. About a 32-hour work week, be really happy. I'm going to get everything done on my Friday. But this concept that we're trying to reduce the amount of hours that we're in that work piece of the balance sets a lot of people up for failure. Because to get great at what you're doing, whatever your profession is, or your career path, or your skill, probably got to read. You probably should go out and engage with people in the community that are also passionate about what they do. You might want to go to a conference. There's all of these things that we should be doing to master our craft and to get good at what we do. It might be being involved in community nonprofits, other organizations, but it's not as simple as a 40-hour week. If we're trying to bucket that piece of our life to 40 hours and then say, and then I'm going to take 40 hours and I'm going to have all this fun and then go to sleep or something like that. But 60 hours in a lot of white papers and literature out there tends to be that sweet spot. We do need downtime and recovery time. We do need vacation. But for the things that you're passionate about that align with those core values that we're working on that match your long-term strategic plan, which might be impact at work. I want to buy a rental property and put it on Airbnb is something I want to do. I want to take 4 vacations a quarter. Like the whole of your work energy is going to be, 60 hours is gonna be the sweet spot where you'll be fulfilled and you'll find energy and you won't be drained. You start tipping into a 70 or 80 hour week, you'll quickly find burnout. And so I challenge people to think about that because it's not that you're at work for 60 hours. It's that you're giving yourself the brain space to be great at what you do. And that extra 20 hours of time, that's where you're really trying to find the magic. And it's not to say that your organization or that your employer owns that time. They don't. That's how you your skill and your craft and your autonomy in what you're doing and how you're driving your passion into your work, the community, the clients that you serve.
How do we redefine success and fulfillment? Well, there's a number of ways up on the screen. I think the idea, like I said earlier, of chasing that dream of the 50-50 is not there. Guys, I use notes, so don't mind me, I'm gonna walk around with them. But I do think when we shift that balance to rhythm, we discover a more realistic and sustainable way to live, right? It's no longer this one size fits all. As we said, it's no longer the 40-hour week, it's the 60-hour week. You're already doing it. Everyone's definition of success looks different. Maybe somebody is looking more for growth, where somebody is looking for more connection, or maybe just finding more time to eat and learn for themselves. You're shifting from measuring productivity by work impact made. So you're shifting from the hours by impact made, and you don't need more hours. You just need to be more intentional with it. I think the idea of the more you work, the more busy you are, the more fulfilled you are. Now I think it's the more you focus on yourself and your growth and your perception, how you leave a legacy, right? That is the fulfillment. And when you find a company that has that, or a career path with that, who really truly believes in you and your personal values, you can bring that personal value, professional value, it's huge. It's recognizing the seasons, as Brett mentioned. And when you honor your limits, you actually perform longer, you lead stronger, and you live a more fuller, fulfilled life. And so true success and fulfillment, I think it isn't being everywhere for everyone. It's really being present of where it matters most, and that is different for everyone. And a fulfilled life doesn't come with a perfect balance. It just mostly comes with that alignment and what's truly important to you.
Absolutely. And I think the seasons piece, a lot of people don't think about that. I know Gina mentioned earlier this concept of give and take, especially in a relationship. And there's a book I like called Startup Life, stemmed from startup communities. And Brad Feld wrote a lot of literature on, and this goes back to like the Silicon Valley startup hustle of you live in the office, you eat pizza, you drink Mountain Dew, and you build. And in that all that hustle and bustle, if two people are working, the amount of divorces that you would see in that environment was really high, because both spouses are just going full tilt. And it's because if you don't have a give and take, you don't recognize whether it's a spouse, a kid, a partner is needing more of that energy, you have to pivot some of that. And it might be where they're at in their developmental growth. It might be where your partner spouse is at in their professional career. And so it's not a flat line. It's really about being able to have give and take there and plan that out. How do you do that? You have a strategic plan at home, and it lasts more than tomorrow or next week. It's got to be like a 3 to 10 year plan, just like you would plan if you were setting your business up or something. So integration as an ecosystem here, I think this concept really just comes down to making sure that you look at all of the pieces of your life. This is your personal life. This is your community, your friends and your support system. This is your direct family, but not even indirect. It might be coworkers and peers. Your ecosystem is all of the different things, all of the different components of the time of that you transition through the year and how you set your plan up. So making sure that they all have to be playable. We can't 50-50.
I think too, Brett, having like an accountability partner, it could be like your spouse and like somebody at work and just holding you accountable for the check out.
I know I asked earlier about the annual plan. Is anybody in like a mastermind or a peer group? Something I very much recommend, and it's been a big part of my professional career development, is always making sure that I do have a peer group. And that could be a group that is in the same industry as you. It could be a group of managers dealing with the same management challenges you are. But that accountability piece is huge. It comes from that type of group of individuals that are all probably dealing with some of the same challenges. So the future of work. Really, does everybody feel like the job that they do, the thing that they do, gives them purpose? Does it align with your core values? If we go to work every day, we are unhappy. And then we bring that home and we're unhappy about work. And we're choosing work over family. That's a tough concept for kids to get. It's something that we've really navigated with what does the dinner table discussion look like when you've had a really bad day? And you've actually had a bad day, you've also did go to the sports game. And you're like, man, well, why did you go to work? It's so miserable there. We're so unhappy. I think part of that is mindset. Part of that is making sure that you truly are doing something that fuels you and energizes you. I do think that as we go through this inflection point and we think about our truly unique human characteristics in the workforce, we're going to have to ask, what does the future of work look like? And what roles do we play in our industry? I think everybody should introspect a little bit on their industry and on their career path and say, what does the next 5 to 10 years of technology innovation mean? And how do I position myself not only to align my core values, but also within the future of work? What is my role as a human? Probably aided by AI and machine systems. What is my role in that process? Having your core values locked down and having a plan is an important piece of that puzzle.
I think too, it like kind of helps you stay streamlined. Like if you are fulfilled at what you do, you're gonna come home and show your kids and your family or your dog family, right? Like how happy you are, and it's gonna make them want to be better. And so if you are not in a position where you feel fulfilled or you feel that growth, and then falling back on this exercise of what your values are, I mean, it kind of helps you streamline that and finding companies that can really truly lead you.
Next word is fun. A lot of times this is easier. There it goes. Maybe he's got a point in. Yeah, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but balance is an almost impossible standard, I think, as we talk through this, and then we're going to get to a discussion about, well, what makes a good employee? What's an employer's role in this idea of work-life integration? But it's not. Balance makes it nearly impossible to be successful on either side of the equation right now. You're going to fail in your work job balance half, and you're going to fail in your life balance half if you truly are trying to separate them and then keep them on a 50-50.
Power the right fit. Well, anybody, let me power that back. I worked for a number of different companies. I know Austin shared a little bit about it, but I was born and raised in California, and my first real job out of college working for this like hotel conference center, and I had moved to more travel and tourism commercial real estate where I was the youngest person in this manager role by like 30 years. And so the idea of that professional and being polished, anywhere you go, you wore this jacket. It was the best experience of my life. And then moving to Washington was a whole different vibe in a good way. I love Washington. I've been here for a while, but finding the right company and the fit for where your growth path is, and then as like I said earlier, like finding the value is key. And I didn't learn that until later on. I mean, like I said, my first job was I was still a teen, whatnot, and now I'm not. So I think just finding a company that aligns more with your values and respects your boundaries is life changing. when you're in the right environment and one that truly values your purpose, flexibility and humanity, I think the balance stops being a battle and it's becoming how you thrive. And it really begins how you truly believe. I know with my manager, we do quarterly reviews and I'm like, here's all my professional goals, right? We all strive to be who we want to be. And my personal goal is I'm shutting work off from 5 to 7. I'll be available for the emergency, but in that time I'm with my family and there's full respect for that, full all of that. I think having a supportive company culture is huge because balance doesn't just depend solely on the individual. It definitely is in the environment that you're in. And I think the company that I work for, we really want people to succeed, not just in their professional life, but really in their personal life. And being able to find that is just, is really neat. And once that's really the way you fit, right? Your family that you live for, that's why you're working, right?
There are a lot of pieces to this part of the puzzle, and I think, hitting on all the core values piece, we talked about that, making sure there's alignment there. But who's had a bad? We've all had a bad manager at some point. And, my heart goes out to managers right now. Now is arguably the hardest time to be in line management. In fact, most of the current workforce doesn't desire to be in management for quite a few obvious reasons. But one being that when we have a new generation going into management roles, we really don't have any fundamental management training. You don't know how to manage people naturally. I mean, in a perfect world, there would be mentorship and training on management, there'd be management training. The cost of implementing those infrastructure in small business, especially, is really challenging. And so there's been a generation that has exited the workforce. By the way, none of them were terribly great managers, tended to fall generationally in like a micromanager category. And now we've got this new generation coming into the workforce, and it's just really hard. There's hybrid work challenges, there's workforce development challenges. AI is coming in and changing how everything happens, and we're doing it so fast. And so in some ways, we do have a really, really tough road ahead of us just in corporate structure and management. And I think when you think about what makes a great place to work, it is an organization that's trying to build structure or mentorship, trying to build structure for management training. And the core values, those have to exist and alignment has to exist. But building an infrastructure for success that allows autonomy and delivery of whatever the output is, whether it's a widget or an amount of time, is a key part of the puzzle. But values aren't enough. We could structure a company's management architecture or frankly, it could be a bad equation in terms of what is necessary to be profitable. But you could create a really challenging place to be. So there are systemic headwinds against workforce right now. And everybody at production level all the way up to leadership needs to be thinking how we build mechanisms for success and communication with workforce. Because that's going to be where real company success thrives, is building mechanisms that are going to navigate the next 5 years successfully. So I think we hit on this. Yeah, it's really, I think I just kind of got ahead of myself on this slide, but it's really, what does it take? What do companies and what does good leadership within an organization need to look like? A lot of it's going to be how we measure success. Is it an amount of time? Is it an output? One of the things that I find really fascinating, who benefits right now? Like if we can go out and replace 10 humans in a traditional function with an AI solution. And now what one person can get done with an AI solution, I'll put it this way, can be completed in an hour. Does the employee who's putting the same output through in 1 hour, do they need to be done for the day? Because they've hit the metric of completion. Does the employer get all of that extra output? We pay everybody 8 times more. I mean, these are the challenging conversations that are going to have to be recognized. It's almost like getting a whole bunch more work if suddenly you have 4 AI bots complete everything that you could do all that extra work, who is the benefit factor of that? Is it the employees or is it the employer? And that is the heart of the challenge right now. Did you know that 30% of remote employees right now are working 2 full-time jobs? Why is that? So they can, yes. But they're successfully getting whatever success looks like done at 2, sometimes 3 jobs right now. That's an interesting statistic to me. It's scary that, from on one hand, I'm like, well, if you have half your day left, maybe we should call a few more of our clients and see how they're doing. Yeah, but this is in part just people successfully leveraging technology in an environment where they're able to put twice the work product out in an 8-hour day. So we have to solve all this to get the balance of the integration piece right.
The other interesting part too makes you wonder what happens then, so that then the AI does the job of the other person, so that this other role starts shifting into something different than what they signed up to do.
Yeah, we when we did our all hands this year, we got the entire team together for the first time we could ever afford to fly everybody to one place and have a big event. I know Hayden's been doing this for a while because I actually checked with them and said, how the heck do you do your annual event? You've got a lot of people, like I'm pretty sure they all go to band and have a big party. Yeah. And so we did that. And we had a speaker this year, and our speaker this year was HI in the AI world, and it's human interaction. And the emphasis on this piece is humans do have a very unique characteristic, unique component to play in this role. It's empathy, it's certain creativity and decision-making capacities that simply don't exist at an AI level. Even if we got it perfect and built a supercomputer, there's still going to be human touch points in the process. And what we do well is not necessarily what we've been spending our time training and building workflows for. One of the biggest challenges that we're worried about in legal is an attorney gets skilled by going through a series of more complicated tasks. But if we take the first 2/3 of a career arc and we turn it into automation, which we will be able to do, how do we ever have an attorney on the back third doing the complicated parts of the process? And so understanding how we build this piece of the journey really comes down to how we set our organization up for success, how we build those training mechanisms. And so it really is looking at how employers can support staff's education journey, and then how we build proper balancing mechanisms for all the different pieces of work-life balance that come with that. So what does integration look like in practice? There's the family piece of it that we talked about, this personal component. There's your own passions and the curiosity, these things that you're interested in, how your core values come to life, and all the different pieces of your personal pursuits. Do you play an instrument? Are you learning a new language? And then all of these things take work and they take time. So it's figuring out how to integrate the whole. We'll talk about that when we go into the BTO side of things. Yeah.
No, I was gonna add, I think integration, like, for me, I think it will, it comes to life when you're vulnerable. You're gonna ask for help, and then giving yourself permission to rest. I think that's one, like, little healthy habit that we all forget to do. And then just letting go of the unrealistic expectations. There's really live that full integration.
All right, so you can get your entire 10-year strategic plan on one page. So you have your core values. You're going to work on those. We've given you a mechanism to distill those. So EOS is a framework. It came out of a whole bunch of literature out there, good to great. There's a bunch of wonderful books. The main book for EOS is Traction. There's a book called Rocket Fuel. It's really a business focused framework for developing strategic planning. I challenged everybody to bring this home tonight. And it's really about making sure that you've integrated your personal life and your own strategic plan, where you want to be in 10 years. If you don't know where you want to be personally, it's really hard to figure out what steps you need to take in your professional career. And so when I do planning, and we do family strategic planning once a year, I do it with all of my organizations, but I've broken that piece down into business, pursuit, family, health, and wealth. And really it's those key components, making sure that you have the health piece, the family piece, the business, whatever your professional career is, but also whatever drives you creatively. That's probably a pursuit. Maybe it's real estate investment, or maybe it's art, maybe it's music. And then also, what is a financial target? If you don't know what a financial goal is at home, it's really hard to figure out how you balance all of those pieces. Are you saving for college for your kids? Are you investing all your money in real estate? Well, if you're investing all your money in real estate, you might not be taking the right amount of trips or vacations. All of these things need to sort of be balanced. And in order to be successful at that, you have to sort of know what they are. So this is a framework. We're certainly not going to be able to get through it today. And I encourage you all to do a little investigation on EOS and just some of the foundations. But really, you would take your core values, you would set a family vision statement, and really align your home life with the core values. That allows you to say where you want to be in 10 years. Well, if you know where you want to be in 10 years, what do you need to do in 3 years to get to that point? And then you back yourself out to three. A lot of people will see like a 5-year strategic plan milestone. I'll tell you, I never use a 5-year, always use a 3-year. 5-year is too far away to procrastinate. The minute you say I need to get something done in 3 years, it becomes real. And then you got to go, crap, what do I get done this year in order to get to 3 years? So 5 years is a throwaway number. 3 years is really where the magic is. And that's at the heart of EOS here. And so you set your 3-year, and then you say, well, what do you want your income to be in 3 years? What do you want your net worth to be? How are you going to measure success? And then put some bullet points down. What does 5 years look like? You know, for me, 5 years, I want to be taking 1 trip a quarter with my kids. I want to be going on a family vacation annually. Start mapping out some of the pieces. I want to own a rental property somewhere and visit it once a quarter. I want to learn a new language. Whatever that looks like, you're going to map out some major bullet points. Well, if you put those down in 3 years, what do you have to do this year in 2026 so that 3 years from now, you will be able to check those boxes? And then you go back and you take your 1 year and say, okay, this year, I got to get these things done. Well, EOS asks you to break it out into quarters. If you know what you need to get done at the end of the year, what do you need to do in Q1? If you have the goal of buying a thing or learning a thing, well, the first quarter, it might be identifying, building the plan, setting the budget, might be a planning quarter. The second quarter might be engaging a professional or, starting the process so that you can get there at the end. Not planning leads to procrastination. Really, it's just about setting meaningful bite-sized chunks. It's really hard to have a plan.
I love that. As a procrastinator, I start even smaller and I start with like an adult task each week. Who does that? Who can never get their adult tasks done? Especially with I obviously have kids, so I'm like, hey, when can I get my desk appointment done? Check, right? And then I do the 1 year, and I love the 3 year. And I think having that as a template is a perfect opportunity to keep planning and make it a habit and keep it.
So Austin's saying we should wrap up here for questions. These 2 tools are really important. And so I encourage you all, if you take anything out of this, well, 1, work-life balance is bullshit. Remember that. It's really work-life integration. It's not that you don't need hobbies. It's not that you don't need time. It's that if we think of them as separate things, we are setting ourselves up for failure. So, and then it's also really having a plan, because you can't figure out how to integrate the two pieces until you have a plan, until you know what your values are, until you know where you want to be. It's really hard. It's really hard to think. All right, so we're going to jump into some questions here.
If you have a question in the room, please raise your hand. Question on Zoom, please ask it, type it in the chat. I have a question right off the bat.
Sure.
So you have a bad day, you're having your family time, you have 2 young kids. I'm spinning my situation for here. I've been really bad, and I've been trying to have my line in the sand. Like, I've been home, I'm gonna be home. It doesn't work like that all the time, but I try to have that mindset. But then if I'm mad about something at work, and I know that you guys have also been in that position, how do you walk that? How do you just turn it off if you're so heavily integrated?
So I'll start. One of the things we do at dinner at home, we call it rose and thorn. And I think it's really important not to ignore that work can be hard and that things can go wrong. So the way we talk about it at dinner is you do a positive, a rose, and a negative, a thorn. And then we talk about what we learned from both. And really it's trying to humanize or distill down at a level with, at least for us with the kids, the challenging aspects of how we navigate. Well, my COO and I got at it. We had a really big argument today. We disagree about where we're going. And it made me feel sad. We have to break that down. You feel sad, Dad? Well, he was right and I was wrong. Yeah, I'll get over it. But I mean, it helps them work through some of their issues. And we've made that a really big part of our dinner conversation. But I really, you've got to then, it's like the shit sandwich. Good, bad, good. You gotta bring some of the roses in there too. You can't just dish dinner, or otherwise, as we talked about, you're there and you're just like unloading and
Therapy session for your kids.
and it's the same with your partner or your spouse.
Yeah.
If all you're doing is venting at each other and you don't bring in some of the positives, we tend to focus on the hard parts or the negatives, and sometimes you can just vent for an hour and not talk about the 5 successes you had. That's mentally exhausting. I mean, that's negative reinforcement for yourself, first of all. And then it's a doom spiral. That's not good.
Gina?
Well, for me, I need to just decompress for a moment, because most of the time I'm like running from point A to point B in the middle of a meeting. I know Kristen can contest. I'm like on the phone, finishing that Teams call and then running to the next. I'm like, let me grab my baby from daycare, right? And so for me, it's like just taking a minute, not really speaking, just soaking it all in, taking a deep breath. So when I walk into the house and my kids are there ready to go to either gymnastics or maybe it's today where they have nothing, I can be fully present with them and soak in everything with them and hear them, and they can have my best self, since they probably their best time of day. And then to Brett's point at dinner, we are literally just talking about how was work, how was this, what is it like being in Tenerife? That just really sparked that. And then when I'm reconnecting with my husband, it's okay, I've decompressed with whatever was irritating me at that point, and now it's not. And now I can just vent it out for a minute, done, and then fall asleep. But I think just finding that balance of not bringing that home to those little innocent little kids, but to your point, sharing the ups and the downs and sandwiching it, and what works for our family. And we also have a crazy toddler running around at the same time, so they would change, cookie time to popsicle and
Thank you.
yeah, great question.
Who else? Most of
Question. So, talk to me more about the 60-hour week sweet spot. Because I would say a lot of people would be trying to get away from the 60-hour week work week, 6-hour work week. So,
Yeah. So I look at it a lot this way. I think the more that we imagine the AI world that we're heading towards, what is our uniquely human capability? It's the ability to have these interactions and these connection points. And I think part of the problem with the way that we've structured our work environment is that we've got maybe a lunch meeting or coffee meetings during the day, but there's a lot of board meetings and activities and extracurriculars that happen outside of the work, or on the weekend, and not looking at those as a part of the whole means, and we're seeing this a lot now in the new workforce. They want to go home, get in their pajamas and turn Netflix on at 5 p.m. I want to say, there's a heck of a lot of work that happens between 5 p.m. and the end of a dinner meeting that might be the difference of mentorship, learning, career development, business development. And so I think a lot of that concept of the 60-hour week is appreciating that we're going to be challenged in our professional careers if we don't figure out how to find the pre-work coffee meeting or the after-work networking group or event. And I mean, we're here, you're here. You've done the hard part by showing up, but people aren't showing up, and AI can't show up and we can't. And fundamentally, we're all connecting today. That's a secret weapon we have. And so this idea that we're going to figure out how to compress, and maybe then 40 hours works, but then we have to figure out how we're engaging with each other and within different networks and social circles in that mythical 9 to 5 that's often very sacred and guarded.
I do think too, it's like, it's an evolution, right? Like the 40-hour work week and the 60-hour. I think what we are today is already doing 60 hours without even realizing it. It's like you're up and you're checking your email and you're up at 7, and like if your work just doesn't end at home, like I know I'm using the concept of parent because it's just I'm living that right now, but that's a full-time job too. That's all part of that 60-hour work week, right? And the AI element adds another piece of that, but I think we don't give ourselves enough credit, but that's what we're already seeing. It's just the reality of what it is now. And working hard, it's starting from the moment you wake up to the moment you shut down.
And it's being intentional with it more than anything. With the pandemic, and most businesses saw this. There was a noted dip in productivity, particularly in an industry where billable hours was a metric of success. But everybody reported working more. They were remote, they were at home, they were thinking about work more than they ever had. They were waking up, checking their phone, cruising to the office, do some work, go do the dishes, think about work, go back to the office, do some work, make some dinner, think about work became this just really sort of always on your mind. So you're feeling almost overwhelmed with the amount of time that you're spending on work. In the 60-hour sweet spot, that's saying that down to 60. I mean, that's another concept of, to Gina's point, we're working all the time. We weren't getting the same output. We were getting less output than ever, but people were more mental health issues, right?
So, share a little bit, see if you guys can talk a little bit about a lot of the parents thinking that, I don't spend enough quality time with my kid, I feel so terrible, and I'm bad parent, and our theory, I'm 64 years old, and I grew up in a different environment. And to me, there's a really bad concept about what is quality time. And to me, when I got home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, I owned a bunch of drugs. I hit my head when I was little, and I got into the trucking business. It was very successful for me, but I was gone a lot of hours. But when I came home, I went, let's go outside and I'll teach you how to run a wheelbarrow, how to rake leaves, how to fix a lawnmower, how to mow the lawn, how to do the shrubs. 38 years later, I've been married 40 years. 38 years later, I have 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy, and I'm very successful. And a lot of people think, oh no, that's not quality time. You're a slave driver. You gotta go to the baseball, you gotta go to the volleyball game, you gotta take the fishing. Well, I'm not a fisherman guy, and I'm not, a sports guy too much. But the time that I did have, it was always a life lesson that we were talking about. Sunday, we'd come out of church and spend at least 2 to 3 hours at some restaurant talking about life for 3 hours around the table with my kids. And so, can you guys share a little bit about that part where parents think that it's completely crazy to have your kids, you have to pay a lawn guy company to come do your lawn for your kid. We're gonna call the, social services. But that's making you mow the lawn, it's not even fair, whatever.
Well, I love what you're saying. But like, as a parent, I am like constantly like, am I spending enough time with my kids? Should I be doing this? I really want to get this done at work because I feel great about it. At the same time, my son is going through this for the first time and I need to be there. And it is a constant battle. And I think society has put so many buzzwords and things in your brains, our brains, my brain, where I constantly latch onto that. And I'm like, man, my parents raised me great and I think I turned out okay. I want to take that and bring that to my family as well, where we have society telling you all these things that you should and shouldn't be doing. And I think, obviously I'm really passionate about this, but I feel like, for me, like the quantity and the quality are totally different. Like when I'm with my kids, I am full on in it. And if I can't, and don't have school and I don't have daycare, well, guess what? They're going to learn what mom does at work. And they're going to be involved and learn what the job site is and help out with that, right? And so they're seeing what I do for a living, so they understand when I am working, we know exactly what that looks like, right? Now it's not every day, safety, right? But it is a reality, and sometimes we don't have those needs and those things. And I think when you're honest with your kids and you involve them in those life choices, it's a reality. I mean, I think there's so many things that go into it with, they see what you do and they look up to exactly who you are and what you do. And so when you share that piece of you, it's a big piece. And when you're in it and you're teaching them life skills, that's all we can do, grow them and water them and hope they turn out to be great humans, right? It's great.
Yeah, it's for us, it's definitely quality over quantity. And I think having the ability to set plans, figuring out how to make sure that you're having those quality moments. Part of the challenge, of course, is how connected everybody is with all the technology. You can be with your kids for an entire week and never exchange words. If you don't have a plan, it's really easy to see how technology can just sort of wipe out a weekend, and you'll have a lot of quantity and no quality. And so having those meaningful moments is really important. And huge advocate of child labor, by the way. That work in all of the businesses and all the city jobs. It's critical. I mean, and as somebody who's doing hundreds of interviews a year, one of the questions I ask right now, it's my favorite interview question: did you work in high school? I mean, if you didn't work in high school, what did you do in college? So, like, because we're now seeing like attorneys come into the workforce that they don't even know like how to clock in and clock out. They've never had a damn job before. And to me, that's just like, I don't have time to teach them how to, like, I'll tell you one quick story. I hired somebody for a software company. This was in California. We were in Petaluma, outside of the Bay Area. Did the interview, guy accepts the job. And turns out he didn't have a car. He was wondering how we were going to buy a Uber for the office every day. I'm like, well, you actually have to drive to work. We don't provide shuttles. But that's, to your point, it's a gap in sort of at home. So yeah, kill the technology as much as possible and make it quality.
Question.
So I'm hearing a lot of like planning and about a typically stable life. As someone who has a husband with a very unpredictable and severe illness, how do you adapt your plan for someone who doesn't have stability or the ability to plan this heavily? Because one morning I could wake up and not walk, and the next morning I might fly. I guess have that work-life balance, dealing with that scenario.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I would still argue that planning helps. And certainly that might be planning a certain day, but it might as well also be planning your life so that you have the flexibility within your work and within a particular quarter or season that you have to cover. I mean, it's just I think in a lot of cases it would be planning architectural, not necessarily expecting a certain day to go a certain way, but actually structure it so that any day can go whatever way.
Yeah, I also think too that communication and then just knowing, I'm biased because we work together. Who are you? But I think also that communication and then just that openness and knowing like what is important. Like for me as like a leader and a manager, like my team members' personal life is like super important to me. And like knowing that if you were to come and be like, I can't work, I'm like, I got you. Right. So finding like a company and employer that knows that and understands that is so huge. And I think that helps figure out the unknowns a little bit because life can change in an instant. And I know just how much anybody else that can happen. And so it's a big deal. And so being open to that and knowing that change is a thing happening.
But that's a great point. And if your work peers or colleagues or workplace doesn't know, it's really hard. And that goes back to the integration piece. Like we have to bring some of our personal life into work. Like we can't be just dumping our personal drama into the workplace. That's not tacky. I mean, that is tacky. That's not constructive. But at the same time, like, who are you? What are your values? What are you passionate about? Bringing some of that. So when I run team meetings, I always start out with a segue. And the segue is, what was something positive personally and something positive professionally from last week? I do that every meeting. And it's 10 seconds. Like I drove people to the point where it's like, you don't get to spend a lot of time. This is not storytelling time. This is last week. It was great. I went to my daughter's swim meet. She got first place on whatever, beat her new personal record on something. And for work-wise, I'm really excited about next week's strategic planning session or all hands meeting. And it's just the psychology of one, positive things, and two, bring that like, oh, your daughter swims. That's cool. I know you go to swim meets on the weekend and that's how you spend your weekend. Or I just learned how to play an instrument, or I'm learning like all those little pieces humanize us. They create connection and they also give us the ability to sort of help sort of understand and cover and navigate some of those pieces. But if you're just all work all the time, I don't know who you are. I don't know how to.
Flip side, you're talking about going on vacations with your kids. Do you allow yourself to completely unplug on vacation? Or are you still checking the work email? Are you still?
That's a good question. So we have a strategy for this. I do take vacations once in a while where I'm totally unplugged. But for the most part, in the life that I have built that we live in right now, there's a core time. I get up in the morning early and I clean my email. But I intentionally have better mental health for the rest of the term. So I have planned work only events on. But I do touch the desk. I do make sure that nothing's burning down. And then when I go spend time with the family on vacation, I'm not worried about the things that might be burning. I know them. Either is or is.
Yeah.
Might let someone go.
I assume some of that has to do with the team you built also. You're comfortable with doing that. It's not everyone has that. I know if my boss goes out of town for 2 weeks, she only has 6 employees of her, so she might not be able to check out. But Gina, how about you? Do you check?
It depends what kind of vacation
Yeah.
we're taking, right? Is it like a staycation? Is it an adult vacation? Or recently, I know you're still laughing at me, but recently I was fortunate to go out of the country for the first time just in September during the craziest time of like home building and great homes, and it was nutso with a new team member where I was 9-hour difference. And so I battled with my husband. He just started a new company this year and I'm like in the thick of it. And I said, should I bring it? Should I not? Should I bring it? Should I not? And it was like up until we left that day, like I'm just gonna leave it. I left my laptop and it was the best refresh of my life. And I think I needed that, like, hey Gina, I'm gonna go put this in the closet at home and need it. for you to just check out. And I mean, I had my phone, but it was not active, but to your point, like, my anxiety level, like, clearing the nonsense in my emails and I'll come back to more nonsense, you know, thousands of emails. You know, because people are just like, you are crazy. Was refreshing for me, and that reboot that I needed. Now I can totally be better about it, because I'm sure everyone can, but I think the one thing that I will always do is just kind of clear that email chain out, because I don't need it. Someone's gonna figure it out and delete it, and I don't have to come back to.
Anyone else in the room?
Could you give us a couple minutes on the mastermind discussion? Like, where do you find these folks? How do you make sure there's diversity? Did you start it? Did somebody else kick it off? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to sort of create a group structure like that. There are different platforms out there, YPO, there's, what's the other one? Vistage, Worldwide. Those are for like executive masterminds. And then with each industry, attorneys, accountants, whatever, there are different organization groups you can get that will place you with peers, and they're structured for that. Some of them are paid organizations, but within our own community, it was something that used to happen more, I would say, pre-pandemic. There were in fact chamber segments that would put peer groups together by industry verticals. So you might find real estate agents in one group, or they blend different professional groups that way. But the way I look at it is it needs to be, if you're looking at it from a mastermind standpoint, I believe it should be between 6 and no more than 10 people. And everybody has to have a commitment to showing up to a regular schedule. And there needs to be some format to the meeting. And I would be happy to help anybody kind of set something like this up. I've done it countless times over the last decade. I'm a big believer that we need somebody other than our spouse and our coworkers to help keep us within an accountability structure. Professional athletes have a coach for a reason. And it's not because the coach is better at them at what they do. It's because the coach is there to make sure that they set goals and hold themselves accountable to those things. And so in many ways, a peer group, if you don't go as far as having like a coach or something like that, a peer group is really structured for accountability more than anything. And that's in a good peer group, it's not just accountability to work. It's accountability to your health, to work, to your strategic planning within your family structure, to your goal setting.
Does the chamber still offer this?
That's a good question. We don't have masterminds right now. We have learning groups, which are leads groups within that. Don't have a mastermind. Maybe. Honestly, don't know. That was I don't know locally.
Yeah, we used to do a mastermind speed dating at Fuse, and then we would pair people into groups. Yeah, for like get a bunch of people together, you know, have some bets and you know figure out how to go around and talk to each other. And then the goal was to identify a group that could sort of structure that around and give a framework. I think it is a missing piece today. Anything that gets us connected outside of our core social is good, but also I think part of the challenge with networking these days is there isn't enough structure to it. And so it's easy to get lost in the virtual connect. And then, you know, we're not actually connecting when we're together. The human interaction piece is missing. And it's like, okay, cool, well, I'll check in on LinkedIn, and now we're LinkedIn friends, but what the heck? Never gonna get through that in class.
All right, any more? Last questions, wrapping it up? Chad, you look like you have a twinkle in your eye. Anything? No? All right, let's give a round of applause.
Always happy to talk about any of these things. Brett at Gravis Law, by the way.
Yeah, I will send out their contact information as well, so
Anybody want extra name sheets so they can take it home and build it?
Okay, really quick, if you have a couple of moments, please fill out your evaluation form. I am now in the process of figuring out the sessions for 2026. So if you have an idea for a session you want, the experts, it's only 46. Please write it down on the evaluation.
That's bad news.
Next month, this month is December 9th. We have a really good session coming up. It kind of all ties into this. It's about thinking with empathy. It's about understanding your people, understanding that they have lives, understanding they have other things to do. We have great, we have the
So long.
and
Oh,
sorry.
well, can't say that.
Thank you all so much for being here. Have a great night.